Good morning, Fit Familia! How's everyone doing out there this morning? Just gonna jump on the computer here for a second, get our group up, and then we'll get rocking and rolling. This morning we are making double chocolate CTP cookies. These ones we don't mention very often. Our most popular ones is the peanut butter CTP cookies, but this one is definitely in the archives of our recipes, and it's a really tasty one as well. So we'll get started with that one. Nikki's in here. Good morning, Nikki, and Hilda jumped on as well. Good morning. Thanks, guys, for being here with us today. I'm gonna get started right away. I preheated the oven to 350, so that's all ready to go. And if you had taken a look at the recipe before the show here, I did have to tweak a few of the ingredients to what we had at home, so I'll go through those as well. So the recipe calls for peanut butter. This recipe actually was inspired by the CTP peanut butter cookie recipe, but we just made some tweaks to it to make it double chocolate. So we don't have peanut butter, we have almond butter, so I'm gonna use that. We actually haven't given Harrison peanut butter yet, but we've given him almond butter, and we've given him seed butters. He really likes pumpkin seed butter and sunflower seed butter, but we haven't done peanut butter yet. So we have almond butter in our house. It was a brand new container of almond butter, so it's a little bit oily, I suppose would be the right term, liquidy. So you kind of have to, that's what's tricky with using the natural butters in healthy baking, I guess, is because sometimes they're a bit more oily and sometimes they're a bit drier, depending how well you've stirred it or depending on where you are in your container. So we might have to add a little bit more flour as we go because it's on the oilier side. If you find your peanut butter or your nut butters drier, then you might have to add a little bit more of the wet ingredients, like the oil, for example. I saw a few more people pop on here, so I will go make sure I say hello to everyone. Good morning, Carol, and good morning, Laura. Okay, let's get started. So that's almond butter in there, and then our other, I'm just gonna put all the wet ingredients in first. So the recipe called for a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. We are out of maple syrup, so I'm going to use honey. This is our honey from our bees, which is super fun always fun to use. So 1/4 cup of honey. And then if you want something a little sweeter, like if you make these and find, oh, a 1/4 cup wasn't sweet enough, you can always add a little bit more sweetness, or if you found, oh my goodness, those were a bit too sweet, you can adjust that way as well. So that's what I really love about it, is that you can adjust it to your own taste buds as well. It's all nice, healthy ingredients. Don't think you can get more of a natural sweetener than your own honeybees. So I'm gonna mix the honey with the almond butter. So the honey and maple syrup are always interchangeable in any recipe. So what's next? I'm gonna put in a little bit of vanilla. 1 teaspoon of vanilla is in the recipe. But of course, if you like a little bit more vanilla, you're welcome to add a bit more vanilla as well. We just got back from a nice mountain little getaway for Drew's birthday. It was lovely. We spent a lot of time at the playground with Harrison. We went swimming. We had a really nice room with a fireplace, so we had some fires, which was nice. Now, the other wet ingredient in here is applesauce. We do have some lovely homemade applesauce that we made with friends' crab apples in the fall, but it's all in the freezer frozen. So one thing that you can do is you can replace that for your oil. So you do replace oil for applesauce. So that's a substitute in healthy baking. Anytime that there's oil or butter in a recipe, you can replace that one for one with applesauce. But I'm kind of doing the reverse motion of that. So I didn't have my applesauce thawed, it's still in the freezer, so I'm just gonna grab my MCT oil here and put that in, and that's 1/4 cup of MCT oil. I'm just gonna jump away from the camera for a minute to grab my big spatula for stirring. I have my little tiny world's smallest spatula. I love this one. It's funny, Harrison likes to eat off this one too, I think because it's a little bit easier. It's a bit bigger to handle, right, than the little utensils. But that one's coming quite handy. Vivian just jumped in as well. Good morning, Vivian. Thanks for tuning in. So it's 1/4 cup of oil or applesauce. I'm just gonna put half because my peanut butter was a bit oily, so I don't want to risk having too much oil in the recipe. So I'm going to start with a half. I mean, if your batter did end up too oily, you just add a little bit more powder and it's fine, like a little bit more CTP, and it would be fine. I love MCT in baking. It's amazing. It's really nice and creamy. We add it to a lot of our food throughout the day as well. Always goes into a smoothie. It always goes on a salad. Once we are finished cooking our stir fry, we drizzle MCT oil on top of our stir fries. Oh my gosh, when I make like a guacamole or something, I'll put some MCT oil in there as well, just to make it nice and creamy. Okay, now we're ready for the dry ingredients. So I have them all measured out here. They're all 1/4 cup, except the almond flour was 1/2 cup. So you can use any flour of your choice. If you want to use your regular flour, you could, but if you want to use a different gluten-free flour as well, you can do that. So you can interchange the almond flour for what you want. I'm going to sprinkle about half on there and then just see where I am texture-wise. I love almond flour. It's one of my favorites, actually. Gluten-free flours. Easy to work with and keeps everything moist. I find a lot of gluten-free flours are dry, but almond flour keeps everything nice and moist. Easy to find. It can be a bit more on the expensive side, but a lot of times we'll just ground up our own almonds for almond flour. If we have bulk almonds, this is coming together very nicely. We might have to add a bit more powder, we'll see. It's a little sticky at the moment. What is everyone up to this weekend? Sunday? Getting your prep in? What are you prepping this weekend? Besides CTP double chocolate cookies. This is cacao powder, 1/4 cup. We talk about cacao powder a lot, but just make sure that it's cacao powder, not cocoa powder. Two very different products. Cacao powder is actually a superfood, so has tons of health properties, and cocoa powder is not. I just add about half of my dry at a time to get it in there nice and mixed, and then I put half the cacao powder. Now I'll put the other half in just to make sure it's mixing okay, but it seems to be doing really well. I think sometimes that's frustrating with the healthy baking, is a lot of times it turns out different, it's not always so consistent, because I was talking about in the beginning of the show, your nut butter can be a little bit different consistency, and then a lot of times we use bananas, for example. In healthy baking, it's the sizes of the bananas are always different. Sometimes you go to the grocery store and you have itty bitty teeny bananas. Harrison sized bananas is what we call them. And then sometimes you go to the grocery store and they're gigantic jumbo bananas. So it's sometimes a little bit more difficult because you're always having to adjust the recipe, where traditional baking recipes, I suppose, could be a little bit more consistent. This is working out fabulously. Something that we use instead of chocolate chips is the dark chocolate, so the baking chocolate. So this is a fair trade, the Camino brand we like to stick with because it is fair trade as well. As this one's unsweetened as well, so we like this brand. So it just comes like traditional baking chocolate would, and then just gonna break off a couple squares here. Probably don't need that much, but I might have to cut it. And then I'm just gonna chop that up just for a little extra. This wasn't in the recipe, but just a little extra chocolatiness for us this morning. And I like it because it chops pretty easily. So if you want some extra chunks in there of chocolate, you can do that. We've added some nuts in this one too, some chopped up nuts. The great part is it's healthy for everybody, right? So Harrison likes these cookies. I probably wouldn't give him this batch because the chocolate chunks in there, even though it's clean chocolate. Don't really think he needs chocolate at this point in his life, like chocolate chips. Haven't given him any chocolate chips or anything yet. Even though we do choose the cleaner ones, still at this point, don't think it's totally necessary for him. So I'll put those in, the chocolate chunks in there. And then the last ingredient is our CTP. So Complete Truth Protein can be used interchangeably for flour, which is amazing, so easy to use. If you're just starting out with CTP, I know Laura, you've been experimenting with some CTP baking. You might want to consider half and half to start with. So half of the flour you usually bake with and then half of CTP. It just makes the transition a little bit easier, I suppose, because sometimes it's frustrating when it doesn't always turn out. So a 1/4 cup of CTP. This gives you some nice fiber, some nice healthy fats, some complex carbohydrates. So you don't really have to think of these cookies as, I suppose, like they're a healthy snack is what I'm trying to say. So you don't have to carry around the guilt from eating a cookie because you're actually fueling your body by making these cookies, because the CTP has a ton of nutrients. MCT oil has a ton of nutrients. So we're using all nice, clean ingredients here. The cacao is full of antioxidants, which is great to fight off free radicals. So it's like kind of like a power ball or an energy ball, or we have our CTP protein balls. It's kind of like that, but in cookie form. So you can feel good about having a healthy snack. And we've even had cookies for breakfast before, like our Complete Truth Protein cookies. Probably not the chocolate one I wouldn't have for breakfast, but the peanut butter one, for example, or the oatmeal raisin one, we've definitely had for breakfast on occasion as well when we are running out the door. There. So we really worked this batter. It's amazing right now. Perfect. And then the last thing I do, this isn't in the recipe, but one of the last things I do is just sprinkle a little Himalayan salt in there. If you like the little bit of salty, like chocolate salt, chocolate and salt together, salty chocolate, to get that little taste together. That's nice in there as well. All right, and then I'm just gonna grab my cookie sheet. So I have that oven heated to 350, so we're good to go there. And then I'm gonna grab my cookie sheet and just line it with some parchment paper. And then we'll be ready to scoop them out. These don't take long at all, 8 to 10 minutes. in the oven, depending if you want them a bit more chewy or a bit more crunchy. So just leave them in a couple minutes longer if you want them crunchier, for example. I always seem to mess up the roll, but I did a good job that time. This parchment paper is nice. It's an unbleached compostable brand, so we liked that. It's similar to the parchment paper muffin cups that I suggest having. I'm just gonna check the group real quick and then we'll scoop the cookies out. Are there any questions about our cookies this morning? This is our last Cooking with Dorothy for April. So the April booklet, this was the last recipe for the April booklet of Cooking with Dorothy. And then we'll have to come up with a new booklet for May. And I was thinking about doing smoothies. So if you guys have any suggestions for April Cooking with Dorothy, then let me know. But that's what I was thinking about doing is some smoothies. We're getting into some nicer weather here. And I thought it would be nice to brush up on the variety of smoothies because it's kind of easy to get stuck in the same smoothie, you know, every day. But it's really nice to have a variety. We could even consider maybe doing a smoothie challenge. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you would be interested in. So I like my little baller here. And then we just, it's easy to scoop up the batter with this little mauler. It's just a Pampered Chef little tool that we got as a present. I have a little bit of leftover batter for a few more cookies. Usually we just get 12 out of them, but I must have had a little bit, how do you say, over poured my flours. So I have a little bit extra. So I just usually put them roll them into a nice ball. And then we'll flatten them with a fork and away they go into the oven. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. We haven't made these ones in a while. That one might be a little small compared to the other ones. Here's some size cookie. And then, there we have it. I did notice a couple comments coming. I'm just gonna wipe my hands before I touch the computer. That wouldn't make Drew very happy. Greasy keyboard on the computer. Oh, Nikki says, I was thinking smoothies. Awesome. Same page. Vivian says, love smoothies. Awesome. So if you guys have any other suggestions, it doesn't have to be for May. It could be for a different month of Cooking with Dorothy. I thought about doing one that's like summer drinks. So instead, like healthy drinks, like lavender lemonade, for example, a Ninja Spritzer, for example, or Ninja Punch, stuff like that's healthier options for summer drinks, because I know it comes up a lot in the summertime. There's lots of like camping and lots of deck time, outside time, and it seems that whenever we're like hanging with the neighbors or with friends, it's like drinks are involved in the summer because it's nice out, right? So I thought I would do maybe a Cooking with Dorothy coming up maybe in June or July on like healthy summer drinks. I'm not alcoholic, of course, but I suppose that you could always add something to it if you wanted to. And then I did, with the cookies, I just flatten them a bit with a fork, and they won't really they'll stay about the size they are now. As you know, probably noticed we didn't put any rising agents in them, no baking powder, no baking soda, so they'll just kind of stay flat like this. But if you want them chewy, then try about 8 minutes. If you want them a bit crunchier, try 10 to 12 minutes. 8 to 10 for more chewy ones, and then 10 to 12 for crunchier ones. But that's it, you guys. Just throw those in the oven at 350. Then if you have a little bit batter left, you can make a couple more cookies after that. But that's how easy they are. Oh my gosh, I didn't realize how excited I was going to be for these ones. Looking forward to it. Let's see, healthy summer drinks, wonderful. Healthy drinks sounds good. Awesome, thanks for your feedback, Vivian, Carol, and Nikki, that's awesome. We'll work on something for that, for sure. But for May, it sounds like smoothies is a winner. So we'll go ahead and plan something for smoothies for May as well. And then maybe even think about doing a smoothie challenge in the group this month. That would be fun. It's one of my favorites. One of my favorite challenges is a smoothie challenge. So that wraps it up for Cooking with Dorothy. This morning, workouts are continuing this week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6:30 a.m. Mountain Time. Drew will not be in a bathroom this time. It was so funny because we're in the hotel and I'm like, well, I think you're gonna have to work out in the bathroom, Drew. And it worked out just great. Harrison actually slept, which was nice, while Drew was working out. It didn't bother him. But we also wanted to show you guys that even when you're traveling, you can still make it work whatever space that you're in. You can still get your workouts in. And there is always, well, usually there's a gym as well at hotels, and you can take advantage of the gyms. We sure did when we were away. We used the gym. It was nice. Always nice to work out in a different environment. Hilda says cookies look yummy. Yeah, these are a great one of our favorites for sure. I'm gonna pop those in the oven, and then when they come out, I will post a picture so you guys can see what they look like. If you guys make your double chocolate CTP cookies, then let us know. It's a featured recipe for this week, so post it. If you make them, post it in the group. One thing I didn't mention that I should is the recipe says chocolate CTP, and you'll notice that in the picture on this blog post, it is a bag of chocolate CTP. We no longer stock the chocolate CTP. It just, I suppose, wasn't as popular as we thought it would be. So that was a couple of years ago that we had chocolate CTP, but we don't carry that one anymore. So you can just use your regular CTP. That's what I did this morning, and it's fine. It works great too. You still have the cacao in there, so it's still nice and chocolatey without the chocolate CTP. That's all. Vivian says, I'm glad Drew didn't have an accident hitting the tub or sink. He's pretty sturdy. Pretty sturdy guy. So Hilda says, thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone. Yes, that's it. Okay, guys, I'm going to log off. Have a wonderful Sunday. Get your prep in, and let's see those pictures go up of prep day in the group. Bye, guys.